Hello, everyone. Welcome to We Know Reality TV, where we are talking this week about Amazing Race Canada, episode 9. And we're going to take a gander at everything that went on this week, from the Fuse Flavor Fleet to coming from away. And of course, we are the two Americans who have come from away to talk about everything that went on in this episode. My name is Jessica Liese, and with me, as always, is Dan Heaton. Dan, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. I'm hanging in there. I'm just kind of feeling so much joy just looking at Magoo's face when they realized when they realized we're going to make the final. This isn't a joke. Like, he had this look on his face. He couldn't even just like, and I just like feeling that joy right now. Just not because I'm against any of the other teams or for them or whatever, just because it was a surprise. And I like it when there's a surprise. They start at the beginning and they're like, we're going to try to win the leg. And I'm like, oh God. Like, no, just EB and Blake are like, we just want to make the finals. I'm like, yes, that's what you do. And then they win the leg, Jess.
I think that's got to be, I don't know how you're not rooting for them at this point, because it's such a great underdog story. I think any of the other three teams who got in the finals, we can make a really compelling case to, like, they are the whole package and they could easily just run over everybody. But then you got Nippy and Magoo, who not only are they making it into the finals, they didn't squeak into the finals. They end up getting first place on this leg. And they are so joyful, and they're such comeback kids. It's really gratifying. I don't think I've been this excited about a team in the final since, well, a year ago. But anyway.
It doesn't take that long. There's always a team. And I thought it was funny too, because I had this thought right before. I'm like, God, I almost forgot they lost their bags. And then they mentioned it in their interview. Like, you remember in the first leg when we lost our bags? I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah. And now they made it. Now, I don't know. I mean, according to the preview, Nippy's going to walk back home from the task next week. But again, last week's preview showed her leaving a challenge. It looked like she was about to leave too. And that was a total fake out. So who knows, Jess?
Yeah, I mean, you know how Amazing Race editing goes. You show someone saying, "Oh, I'm not going to ever be able to do this. I don't think I can make it," and then they cut to commercial and they come back and they say it again and then they do it.
Yeah, we call that the Ica. That's what we've seen the last 3 weeks. I mean,
Done a lot of
not her
that.
fault. It's the editing. It's the editing. They just are like, oh, we've got another one, But what do you think of this episode?
Oh, I thought it was fun. I thought it was an upgrade from last week for sure. It felt like we were visiting a place that had a real sense of identity around it and a really great story. I'm surprised it's taken us this many seasons. Dan, did I call it season 8? What am I on? This is season 11.
This is 11.
Why do I think it's season 8?
I always think it's
just
10.
realized
I don't know why. It's like I forget that we're 11, but not 8. No, 8 was the Catherine and Craig victory. That was the crazy season, with the pandemic and everything.
Yep. Well, I'm gonna have Scott fix that in post. So quick. Yeah, that's definitely getting fixed. I just lost 3 whole seasons. Okay. We're just going to pick it up. I was really impressed with the sense of place that we got out of Gander, and I can't believe it's taken us 11 seasons to get there, but now we're here and it's fabulous. Dan, how much did you know about this story?
I've heard, but I didn't realize, I don't think, that there was a well-known musical, coming up with it. But I did hear about it. Also, I was stranded in Vancouver on that day. But so I think, like, somehow I read a lot about other places and how people were stranded and everything. But I admit I would not call myself an expert on the Gander situation there with 9/11 and everything.
Yeah, well, as a New Yorker, of course, it's pretty close to home for me, not only because of 9/11, but because of Broadway and Come From Away was a pretty big deal here. You can now stream it. I have not seen it yet, but I've been meaning to, and I'm very excited to, especially now that we've seen a little bit of the town and we've seen a little bit of the experience. So I want to go up to the top of the leg, I guess, because we got to talk a little bit about the decoding the flag task, which I thought people were having a little bit more trouble with this than I thought they might.
Yeah, it's like at first I thought, well, that looks pretty hard. What if people don't know these symbols? And then it's like, here's a book. Look at the book and see what it is. And here's the flags. So it did seem, I mean, I thought the most interesting thing again was teams working together there, where you have then Evie and Blake working with Nippy and Magoo because they got there first. And then you have Ike and Dimitri working with Jesse and Jonathan. Everybody seems so confused when they work with Jesse and Jonathan, it seems like, though I think everyone has done it. And Grace and Joe kind of by on their own. But then you have the moment where I don't know how big a moment it was, where Dimitri pulls the whole, like, you just yell out the answer too loud, like at a trivia night or something. And just, which I tend to do sometimes and get scolded by my teammates, but because my voice is really loud, and just says the answer with Grace right there. So I don't know. It's hard to tell. The editing, it seemed like Ika thought he gave it away and Grace kind of went, oh, but I'm not 100% sure, like they weren't close already or something, but it was a thing for the show.
Yeah, it was. I don't know that this was the moment that Ike and Dimitri had it slip through their hands, honestly. But it was an interesting moment for sure. And I think there are probably bigger mistakes we can point to later on that probably caused their downfall. But then we get into kind of the meat of the episode, where we are going to join the Fuse Flavor Fleet.
Yes.
And this is hilarious. You have to hand people tea and take a selfie. And some of these selfies were very funny. The people seemed like they were really getting into it. I appreciate it. I think my favorite one, and I posted this to Blue Sky actually. There's one where Jesse and Jonathan take a picture with this guy, and he holds the tea right in front of Jonathan's face.
As it should be, Jess. Just take that. No, I'm just kidding. What a stupid task, but it was a funny task. But yeah, it's like basically they just put them on the Fuse Street team. And my favorite is Jesse and Jonathan, where they have like a line of people and they're just like, come here, go. Come here, go. Come here. And I don't know if the other ones did that too, but they only showed it a little bit. Evie and Blake were kind of on it. Nippy and Magoo seemed very good at this. They were near the front too. But Jesse and Jonathan seemed to have a whole system. Like they like got out a rope and set up a little theme park queue and had everybody line up or something. But I mean, I guess it's not the worst. This is what I always say. I'm like, it was funny and it lasted like 2 minutes. It wasn't the worst thing they've done, probably even this season, with some sponsorship tasks. It was better than the Boost ingredients one, I have to say.
Yeah, well, it'd be hard to be worse than the Boost ingredients one. And you know, you go on Amazing Race Canada, you have to be prepared to be a brand ambassador once in a while. So this is how the show gets made, and we have to put up with it. But Dan, I think we need to talk a little bit about something that happened to you this week.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Fuse Flavor Fleet, why don't you tell the listeners what you found while you were out shopping this week?
Well, I mean, I just happened to be on Wednesday and I had not watched the episode yet, you know, being that, you know, in the US, it takes a little while. And I was at Costco and I was getting my tires rotated because that's what you do when you have a warranty. You got to take it in or whatever. And I was like, oh, I'll go eat at the snack area there. You know, they've got cheap food. And I go up to the soda machine and they've redone all their sodas with Coke products because they used to all be Pepsi. And I look and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. They've replaced whatever they had before, some sort of like tea, with raspberry flavored Fuse iced tea on the soda machine.
Oh, wow. Fountain Fuse, man.
And I didn't even know about the Fuse Fleet. Oh my gosh, I already butchered it. The Fuse Flavor Fleet. I didn't even know about that at the time. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to try this. So I tried it, Jess, and I will say this is not a BioStrath situation. If anyone remember, I mean, people probably don't all know this, but this is Mike Bloom, Survivor South Africa. They ordered this BioStrath, this healthy drink, who BioStrath had sponsored for years, and it was apparently very bad. So we're more in the guru territory, I would say. But all I got to say is this is not tea. This does not taste like tea. This is not tea at all. What I drank was Kool-Aid or something similar. And I looked it up. And the weird thing is, if you go on their website, it's a Coke product, just to be clear. If you go on their website, they don't even have the raspberry one listed as one of the options. So maybe it's Costco only. I don't know.
It's like maybe it's Costco equivalent of the Mountain Dew Baja Blast.
All I'll say is it didn't taste bad, but it's really sugary. Like we're talking soda level, if not more. And actually, I think because soda kind of like, depending on what you get, you don't always taste the sugar as much. This is like Mountain Dew Code Red level of sweetness. I mean, I don't know if they even make that anymore. Sweet. I mean, so I drank some of it. I mean, sometimes I don't mind having a soda here and there, but I'm just saying it's not what I think of when I think of tea. But again, the bottles probably taste very different. But this one, but I will say, this is a thing for you guys. If you go to Costco, I bet you they've got this Fuse iced tea at a lot of them because they just got all their Coke products. So I'm not sure. Costco's giving me no money for this, for their like, get a hot dog and a soda and the soda costs 10 cents or whatever. But I'm just saying that you should check it out.
Yeah. All right. Well, if I had a Costco near me, Dan, I would be tempted to check it out. Although I'm an iced tea person, but I drink that stuff straight up. I don't want any sugar or any extra flavors in it at all. I just want to drink the bitter black stuff. And you can't really buy that in a bottle. And it's one of the things that really bugs me about bottled iced tea is that even when it says it's just tea, that's all it is. There's no other extra things in it. Then you take a big swig of it and you practically have to crunch it because there's so much GD sugar in it.
Or stevia or aspartame or something, that still tastes like, whoa. Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, black coffee, green tea, it's pretty simple, though it's usually warm, not cold. But this, I think some people would like it. I think if like you were running on a race and you were hot and sweaty and tired or whatever, it wouldn't be the worst thing to grab even if it was super sweet, probably good for when you're thirsty. So I'd say slightly above Guru. And I don't know where it goes with Boost because Boost just seems like such a weird thing to advertise anyway. It's like, I don't know. So I think it's above that too.
Yeah. I mean, I liked Guru a lot better than I thought I was going to.
Worse than Cliff Bars, though. The Cliff Bars are the ideal. If I go to a sign-up board, I want a Cliff Bar. I want 5 Cliff Bars.
Yeah. That just fixes you for the whole day. You can just eat Cliff Bars all day, and you don't have to stop for food. It's ideal Amazing Race food.
Totally.
Yeah, totally. So we get to, once we have all been Fuse brand ambassadors and introduced the world to the wonderful stylings of Fuse iced tea, everybody gets on a bus and they go to Gander. And the first thing they have to do is jump out of a helicopter. And we get this roadblock. And this is a very smart ploy on the part of the Amazing Race Canada planners because it is near the end of the race. And everybody has planned out who's doing what roadblock until you get to this point. And then you are at the final roadblocks and you are pretty much compelled to have one person on your team do this particular roadblock. And it's probably the person that was coasting a little bit in the beginning because there's things that they can't do. So we're going to put something in there that is going to be very hard for the person that might have coasted a little bit. And in this case, we get all of the people who are afraid of heights at once doing the jumping out of the helicopter.
Yeah, and I mean, I love both Ica and Nippy also did the one across the buildings. So it's like, oh my gosh. And I think they've pretty much done all the heights tests like the whole time. And then Jesse did do that one. But Jonathan didn't seem to love this either, really. But yeah, Ika, of course, is the one where and I was wondering too, because she was the third one, because there was 2 buses. First bus, Jesse and Jonathan, Nippy and Magoo. I say that like it's just a normal. Yeah, Nippy and Magoo were on the first bus. That's totally cool. Yeah, that's how it was. But Ika was the third one there, and there were 2 people behind her, and it looked like she wasn't going to do it. And I think they said something to her like, "We're going to have them go in front of you." And she was like, "Oh, no, no, no." And then she went. But again, they did the whole commercial thing where she's like, "I can't do it. I can't do it." And then she did.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think the whole trick with this, there wasn't really a trick to once. It didn't seem like. The main thing was you get to go on this, cool chopper, you jump in the water. That's kind of cool. You get back in. There wasn't like a super complicated skill here, but obviously what order you went in did separate the teams.
Yeah, with these kinds of tasks, there really isn't a whole ton of skill involved, and it's really because only one of you can go at a time. It kind of limits the effectiveness of it as a race tool. And I understand we need the spectacle, we need the heights, we need the high profile tasks, but also is it just me or have we had a lot of helicopters this season?
We've had a few. I mean, at least 2. I'm trying to think if there's a third, because there was the one where they got to do the helicopter flight and everybody said, "This is cool. This is cool." And then they had this one. I don't know if we've had
They had
any
to do
other.
math. They had to do the helicopter math. They had to read all the
Right.
altimeters and stuff.
Yeah, they didn't go in it. Well, I mean, they went in
No,
it, but they didn't
but
fly in it. That was really boring. I
it's really
forgot about
boring.
that one.
Yep.
The other ones were okay.
Yeah. I think 2 is probably your maximum, and I think it's also your sweet spot. I don't think you want more than 2 helicopter-related things in a season, unless you're going to call Amazing Race Oops All Helicopters.
Probably not, though. We also then had some airplane ones too, well, including what was coming up. But yeah, I guess that's where we are now. Though I thought, we see the simulator, and I'm like, oh, of course they're going to have to go in there and do that again. They always make them do that stuff. No, they had the opposite. They had the people that work there in the simulator. They got to be the other people this time.
Well, I kind of liked that. And also, famously, one of the most stressful jobs in the entire world is air traffic controllers. So I feel like this really put a lot of pressure on everybody. And it's very easy for us to sit here at home and think, well, it's just a matter of following the directions and remembering the words and saying the words. But also, we've had a full night's sleep, and we are sitting here having eaten 3 square meals, and we aren't being filmed. We are only talking on YouTube for the benefit of the tens of Amazing Race Canada fans out there in RHAP land. It's a little bit of a different scenario, I think. And I would say this is probably the point past which Ika and Dimitri really don't make up the time after this. They're still around the other teams, but I think they don't really ever recover from this.
Yeah, their editing was really weird around them in this task, because I don't know, you could tell they were really stressed and they were struggling, but it seemed like they were stressed when they got there. And that's what I didn't totally understand. And this is not about them and how they acted. I totally get the stress. I totally get that. I mean, I can get stressed out, if I get like a few hours less sleep at night or I miss a meal. I'm like, oh no, I can't do it. And this is like 100 times more. So I get that they were stressed, and it was just one of those communication things, but it was kind of weird because he kept saying, "I'm sorry, I'm really messing this up and messing this up." And then like she didn't even want to talk to him. And I was like, what happened? Did I miss a scene or something? It was strange, Jess. I mean, they were struggling and stressed, but it seemed like maybe it was just they had tried times we didn't see and it was condensed, but I didn't totally understand like what led to how they were stressed from the start, I think.
Yeah, they kind of came in primed to be stressed. And you could see Dimitri was trying really hard to not be stressed. And you see him like using therapy language to try to facilitate this argument and to try to keep a handle on what's going on with him. But you also see him making the same dumb mistakes over and over, where the whole thing is about the terminology. In fact, you had the world's most boring task judge get up there and tell people over and over, I'm sorry, you just didn't have the right terminology.
Phraseology.
Yeah,
Phraseology.
phraseology, right, yes.
I was like, I've never, not the term I would normally use, but yeah, that was the one, oh, I'm sorry, your phraseology needs to be corrected. That's
Yeah.
what,
Boy,
I'm not
that's the
trying to correct your
catchphrase that's
phrase,
sweeping the nation in Canada.
not trying to correct your phraseology, Jess. I was just,
Well,
it
no, my
jumped in my
phraseology
head.
was wrong. I just did what Dimitri did. What I was like putting him on blast for doing, I went and then did that exact thing. So, yeah, real professional operation I'm running tonight. I'm a hypocrite. You can at me, Dimitri. You absolutely can at me. And yes, this task judge, a little bit dry, especially when we're coming off of, donkey fashion guy and photographer lady and here are your onions guy, which by the way, it's been 2 weeks. My child will not stop singing about onions in an opera voice. Um, yeah, you're going to have to raise the bar a little bit here. And air traffic control lady she wasn't given the right assignment, I think. But I like this task. I liked that there was so much nuance to it, and it threw people off. And then we have to go in here and maybe the unsung hero of the entire episode to me, Dan. And the moment that maybe I will use to define this entire season is John Montgomery bringing his full golden retriever energy to the bright and sunny delivery of the phrase moose farts. I had to
Oh,
rewind it and watch it several times because the way John Montgomery says the words moose farts in that bright sunny tone, that is everything I love about Amazing Race Canada condensed into one tiny soundbite.
oh, it took me a minute, and I was thinking at first this was some sort of weird Canadian, like, not weird or Canadian kind of thing, but just like it's some sort of horrible eating challenge. Like this is
Mm.
something really strange, and we call it moose farts, and it's like there was a very short time when Disney tried to sell these sweet treats at the animal kingdom that were shaped like animal poop,
Oh,
and they
jeez.
marketed them like those, like elephant poop and all, and zebra poop, and it got, oh my gosh, people just loved it. So I mean, didn't love to eat it, but loved the fact that how stupid it was and ridiculous, and it lasted like a month, and that's what makes this looked much better. But just the name, it's like you hear the name and it's hard to be like, I want to go eat that. That sounds great. But I'm sure they're delicious. But yeah, John, I mean, the whole thing, I at first when I was like, did I just hear that's what they're called? Is that really? Yeah, like, yeah, it's not like it's like some terrible word you can't say, but it's just like it's so typical. And it didn't really mean anything. It was just go buy this food, go pick up this food that we're known for, just so all the teams could say moose farts. That was the only reason, Jess.
I have a problem with the fact that it's called farts because farts aren't like okay, at least not most of the time. Then you have to call them something else, but they're not physical things. They're not objects, and they are not tactile things you can hold in your hand unless something has gone horribly wrong. And the fact that you should really you should call it moose poop, but I guess moose farts is catchier. Um, and I have a really visceral reaction to naming food after excrement to begin with. This would be an eating challenge I would struggle with. Like they look delicious. Like call them something tasty and I'd be all over them. But I would have a really hard time putting something in my mouth that was called farts.
I
That's just a me thing.
The teams seem really happy. I mean, I think whenever the teams are given food, we've talked about this before, they're always just like, thank you. You're giving something to eat. This is great. But I also enjoyed Grace and Joe giving one to the cab driver. And then
Mm-hmm.
Joe, the one ate it in one
Housing
bite.
it. Yeah.
And Grace was just like a mom looking at a kid like, really? Really, you just ate that? And he's like, yep, I did. I'm like, I've been there, Grace, but yeah, it led to some funny moments. And I think maybe too, this is, you think even Nippy and Magoo, we talked about, well, they had some stressful moments with the air traffic control task. All the teams seem, well, except for Joe and Grace, because they tend to just excel at the things everyone else isn't that great at, and just like rock through it. But there was some stress there. So I think maybe the show was like, okay, we need to give them to do just something silly. We're just going to have them do something fun because we know the last task is really hard. There's going to be stress. Let's give them some food first and maybe they'll do better.
Yeah, I think the Amazing Race Canada, that's their MO, is we're going to have them do something silly and ridiculous and maybe fortify them for the task that is to come. We saw it when the guy gave them the Thousand Island dressing and the veggies. And this is probably even more exciting because it's like, buy something that you might be super excited to try. I still, the first thought I had when the guy gave them the snack in Thousand Islands leg was, did he just give them a giant glass of dressing to drink? And this is much better. And still,
yes,
that would have been better than Boost.
Yes, I thought that too, until, like we said, it was like Jesse had like a carrot. I was like, oh, now I get it. Because I didn't. And then one time they gave him poutine to eat one season, which I was like, well, that's good. That looked really good.
And Beaver Tails was once.
Yeah, Beaver Tails, that's always a good choice. Cheese, they've had him eat bread, well, Subway. Not like that season of Amazing Race Australia where they were eating Subway in every leg. And I'm like, but they never mentioned it. I'm like, what is happening? They're just giving him Subway. But back to this. Yeah. Well, remember, John in the past, whenever there's like double entendres or anything a little bit off, John loves that. Oh my gosh. It's his favorite thing. I don't even know if I want to repeat what it was, but I think it's when they had to eat like something, I don't know if this was Amazing Race Canada or US. It was like, I don't know, balls or something. I don't know.
They had to eat balls on Amazing Race Australia this week. And then I think it was last season or 2 seasons ago where we had the incredible scene, John Montgomery eating a Rocky Mountain oyster, looking at the camera and grinning and saying, nutty.
That's what I'm thinking.
What it was.
Yeah, he's almost like a little kid where he's just like, I get to say farts on TV. It's like that, which
loose farts.
Yeah, I understand. I think this was his big contribution to the season. It was like, it's like, okay, John, do you have any tasks you want them to do? Well, I really like, how about that? They're like, okay,
I really want to talk about farts on camera.
Well, he's been here a while. He's a nice guy. Okay, let's let him do that.
He's been here for either 8 or 11 seasons.
we don't know how many seasons. He just never leaves. He's always here. He just really shows up to do all the tasks. But that's pretty much it. But I guess I don't know if there's anything else on Moose Parts that we need to cover. Do we need to go to the big detour now? I think that's what we have left, because really the last like 15, 20 minutes of this episode is a very diabolical detour, which, if they really wanted to be diabolical, though, this should have been when they U-turned people. Of course, if they did, they would have just eliminated the teams that got U-turned. So I guess they want to make them easier. But this is what I talk about when you have a U-turn and there's two sides where no one wants to do either one. It was interesting.
Yeah, this was very hard. I honestly, though, people were saying they both seemed terrible and they both seemed impossible, but I thought one seemed much, much easier than the other one. I thought I would still be there if I had to do that one with the quilt squares. That was so hard.
It reminds me of, I don't know if they still do this, but years ago I took the GRE and they have a section, like quantitative section. And so many of the questions were like, Johnny needs to get across the river in a canoe, but he won't ride with Betty, but he'll ride with this person and ever. And that's almost what this was. It was a giant quilt. But the problem with this was, in that situation, you've only got like 5 people or 4 people. There were fake out squares. They didn't use all of them. That's brilliant.
Yeah, it was mean, honestly. Yeah, this was harder than anything on the LSAT.
The fact that 2 teams survived, did this one. Of course, Jesse and Jonathan did the back and forth thing, but should have stayed. They only needed one more. Should have just stayed where they were at menu. but which was the other option, the 5 languages, which normally that one would be like the hard detour of an episode. But I agree. If you could crack the code of the other languages like Nippy brilliantly did,
that was amazing. Like, they deserve that win for that alone.
I love the way she explained it too, where she basically was like, I was a server. I know that people say a bunch of words before they get to the actual thing they're ordering. So in her brain, you almost like, it's interesting to think about when you're like ordering something and the server is just like ignoring everything you're saying until you actually do the order, which I don't say a lot of extra words. I'm not really that way, but yeah. So she basically pinpointed, because really it was either one word or 2 words is all you had to really hear. Now you had to know, one, the pronunciation was very different than how it looked. And 2, you didn't always know if it was 1 or 2. And also you had to pick the right words. It was still hard, but we also saw Grace and Joe do very well at this too. It took them longer, but again, the way that they focused in on it was really good.
Yeah, it didn't seem impossible to me. And I don't know, maybe I was primed for it because they start off with the Swedish person ordering, and Swedish sounds close enough to Icelandic, which I spent some time learning last year. And I'm like, I picked out every one of those words. I knew she was ordering soup without reading subtitles. It was fabulous. But the stuff they ordered, I thought was pretty hilarious, because it's very like language class 101 things. Nobody's going to go into a restaurant and order apples and bread. That just doesn't happen.
It's always got to be really basic for that.
Yeah.
So everyone could be like, in French, like, I'll butcher this, excuse me, like jamange, and then like whatever word it is for apple, or, I forget, or whatever. You try to make it like the most basic thing, because it's always like 4 words or
Yeah.
whatever.
Je voudrais un pomme. But
yeah.
you can't do French in Canada.
No, everybody be like Louis and Marie would show up and be like, come on, guys.
This would be like season 14 of US, when Victor and Tabby spoke Chinese in the Chinese food ordering task.
And they had like 3 legs in a row right there. And
yeah,
all of a sudden it's like, why are they winning first all of a sudden? It's like, oh, yeah. Yeah, it helps to know the language. But yeah, I thought this was I don't want to give short shrift to menu, because I know we want to talk about Mosaic a little more, but I thought it was a clever task. And I did like Ika being like, okay, tell me that in English. And they were like, you don't understand how this works. But those 2 were behind at that point. So I understand. They come in, teams are there, but they're coming in like, we have to do something miraculous. And their brains aren't thinking clearly. But I did enjoy that. But yeah, you saw that one had a strategy. When you go to the other side and you've got Evie and Blake, attempt 27.
Yeah.
Justin Jonathan, attempt 21. And you're like, okay, they just kept trying until they stumbled upon it almost.
Yeah, and I think the most diabolical thing is they would never tell you how many you had right. And some of these tasks they do. Some of these tasks is like, oh, well, you have 2 more you have to do, or you have 8 out of 10, or you have 6 out of 10. And this was like, nope, you're wrong. Nope, you're still wrong. And in that respect, I think because both sides were doing that, it's almost like you had to do fewer things on the menu side. So you should just do menu, because there's fewer things to get wrong.
Yeah, because you really, and then also this almost felt the Mosaic almost felt like a final leg kind of task, because there were so many, and it always happens where you get down to 1. And this was one where it was basically you had 2, and it was like this weirdly worded phrase where it's like 1 is slightly above, but not touching the other one. And the tricky part was both teams, Evie and Blake and Jesse and Jonathan, I believe, figured that out. And then they were in the wrong place. They were down a little bit. And there was some other clue that basically said, okay, this square is exactly even with this one. And they had to have that. And it's like, and again, I saw Evie and Blake holding paper, but I don't think teams could write everything down, because you didn't see teams going up to people and writing stuff down. There had to be some sort of, I don't think teams were able to really like get out the board and write all, they had to kind of remember a lot, and that's really hard.
Yeah, I don't think anybody was allowed to write anything down on this leg. If they were holding a paper, it could have been like the thing that had the instructions written on it.
Yeah, because if not, that wouldn't have been that hard. Because
No.
eventually you would have just looked at the board and like tried to draw the board and then figured it out. But that was I'm impressed that both those teams, because Ike and Dimitri show up and they're doing the food. And I don't know how close it was. I don't think it was super close. It was very close between EB and Blake, Jesse, and Jonathan as far as third and fourth, but I don't think it was super close. But they were close enough where you could tell those teams were nervous. There was actually a moment where Jesse and Jonathan talked about switching back to the food. And
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting there and I was like, are they going to get eliminated? I had this
That
thought
would
for a
be,
second because like it was before and it cut to commercials, which I should have known once it cut to commercials, they weren't going to switch.
yeah.
But then they came back and they were like, no, maybe we'll try some more. And then I thought, okay, they'll probably make it because if they switched again, I was like, that might be it.
Yeah, what a story that would have been. You have this team that dominates the entire time, and then right before the final, they get knocked out because they start dandruing back and forth between the two things. That would have been wild. It'd been absolute wild. And I want to give a shout out to the editors because they also reverse faked me out. Usually at the end of the leg, they will sort of gloss over who left when in what order and try to make it seem like everybody's barreling toward the mat at the same speed and they're trying to beat each other and we don't know who it's going to be, and obviously it is the team that left first, but in this case they really faked me out because I thought it wasn't close and then all of a sudden it was.
Well, yeah, because they did show there was a moment where it seemed like Ike and Dimitri were about to get a check. And at that point, the other two teams were still there. But then there was this weird thing where they showed them, they're like, should we get a check? And granted, I don't know for sure if that was actually happening at the same time because you never know. But then, and they show the other teams looking over there. And then all of a sudden they show the other teams both get checks and get done. And it's like, oh, you got me. Yeah, thanks, editors. You had me thinking for a moment because what if it would have been EB and Blake and Jesse and Jonathan both trying to do the mosaic and both teams not getting it. And then one of the teams is like, do we switch? And then you think maybe this is a task that no one can possibly complete. But no, they did it and they both survived. It was crazy.
Yeah, and not only did they both survive, they both check in on the mat within 3 seconds of each other, which I didn't see coming.
It's
And it was
fitting,
great.
I guess. Yeah, they
It's
show
fitting.
up. And then, of course, there's this kind of awkward, like, we're stronger because of you guys. Like, oh, thanks, buddy. But no, I think those teams don't have really any ill will towards each other. I think they both want to win. And there's competition, but this isn't one of those, like, oh, they did it.
Yeah,
Like, no,
no.
there's none of that. These teams, as far as I could tell, seem to be competitive, which I like, but also pretty cool.
Yeah, that being said, it really did feel like they were being forced to say that. It did
No,
not feel very organic. Like, you guys, because you're standing right in front of us, I guess I have to say something nice about you.
then they're like, yeah, the same Z's.
Yeah, back at you, buddy.
I think they were all just so relieved they survived because I mean Jesse and Jonathan got to the Detour first. And I don't know how long, but there was enough time for them to do the mosaic, go to the food, go back to the mosaic, I believe, before anyone else showed up. So that, I mean, it was something similar, but also want to give a shout out to all the people who got to give the clues because I enjoy this when you have the local people talking about the granny squares and they're like, my granny square is here and all that. That was fun to me. I love to be the person that like had the one that no one could get and they start like going, oh no, Parker, what's the deal? But I thought it was pretty fun to have the people like sitting in the rocking chairs. And at one point, Evie and Blake are just like, so you're that one, right? You're that one. And they're just like, yes. They're probably done at that point. Like, okay, we've told you our thing like 35 times, but it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it is kind of fun. And I was kind of surprised that the task, the way they presented it several different ways that made me not know what the hell it was for the longest time. Starts with, you're going to play a pivotal role and put yourself into the musical. And it's like, oh, is it a musical task? well, they probably don't want to pay the licensing for that, so probably not. Fuse money only goes so far. So then it was, we're going to help put these crochet squares on this mosaic. I thought, oh, you're going to have to make a crochet square? That's kind of cool. That would have been a cool task, right? Like a little bit of a puzzle component and a little bit of a handcrafting component. You got to make the square that matches exactly and then put it on the mosaic. That would have been interesting. No, this was a straight up LSAT logic puzzle, and it was almost impossible. And yet we had several teams knock it out anyway. I'm a little worried about Jesse and Jonathan, if we're being honest, because we had them just like running roughshod over everybody for the first half of the race. And now we've just had, they've come within seconds of getting eliminated several times, and the finish in the middle of the pack right before the final. We really want them to be heating up at this point, and it's really Nippy and Magoo for sure, and Grace and Joe that have really started to figure things out as they went along. And I think both of those teams are heating up at just the right moment.
I agree. And I also, we got a story. I mean, I hate to say this like a story bump, because it's, we heard Grace and Joe talking about their brother who's no longer around. And at the beginning, which, I think the fact that they found that as a motivational tool is really cool. It sounds like a very sad story. They've had a tough time. But when that gets mentioned as an amazing race watcher, you go, why are they showing that in this episode? But then they did very well, which makes me wonder too. It's like, I've thought for a while that they kind of have a variety of skills and could do well. They're not super physical, but you don't really, I mean, they're not physical, but they're just, you don't really need that much. They've been fine, but they seem like they have a chance. Nippy and Magoo is like the underdog of all underdogs. I don't think they're going to win. I think this might have been their high point, but then I don't know. I don't know. If you said I had to pick, like, Dan, pick one team who's going to win, I'd probably say Grace and Joe, and then maybe Jesse and Jonathan, but I don't know. Unless this is one of those, because remember, there was Ty and Kat who won season 9, who were dominating most of the season. And then the few legs before the finale, they started to look really mortal. There was the thing where Ty was like stuck on that like ascender for a while, and then they were the last team to arrive at a face-off, and there was all these things, and then they won anyway. So is this Jesse and Jonathan had a bunch of things to overcome and then won? Or is this just they did really well early and then the other teams got better at the race and moved up?
Yeah, it's really hard to say, Dan. I think up until 2 weeks ago, I would have said 100%. I think it's Jesse and Jonathan going all the way. But now I'm not so sure. I think any of these teams, Nippy and Magoo would obviously be the most interesting story and the most fun story, but I think you're right. This is probably Apex Mountain for them. And I love it for them. I love that they got a trip and the Expedia and the boost. And they were so delighted by it. I don't think they were expecting it. And I'm really happy that they get to have that moment and that we're going into a final where all 4 teams have won a leg.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because if you straight up just look at how many legs they've won, you look and you're like, okay, we've got 4 for Jesse and Jonathan, 2 Evie and Blake, 2 Grace and Joe, 1 Nippy and Magoo. So you're like, oh, Jesse and Jonathan are the favorites, Evie and Blake, and then Grace and Joe and Nippy and Magoo. But the interesting thing, like we said, is when these wins have happened. Does it matter? I don't know, because if you look at it, Grace and Joe won leg 7 and 8, Nippy and Magoo won leg 9. And so then we're looking back. Evie and Blake won legs 4 and 6. Here comes Dan Reed's Wikipedia. But Jesse and Jonathan won legs 1, 2, 3, and 5. Now they could win another leg for sure. It's not like they've done poorly, but they have, I mean, it's been a little while. And the reason that they still seem so formidable is they've been U-turned and passed and everything else. And then they finished 3rd or whatever. So maybe not, but it'll be interesting. If they won, I would not be shocked.
Yeah. And
same with Evie and Blake.
Yeah. There's no U-turns in the final leg. There's no passes in the final leg. No face-offs.
And I hope not. I hope there's no passes in the final leg.
I hope there's no passes again ever.
Me too, but I'm not sure I believe it. Yeah, they got more drama out of the passes this season than the U-turns, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, that was That was wild. And we can stop voting on the U-turns anytime too.
Yeah, the U-turn vote always is. I mean, I thought that's a really cool idea. Like originally on Amazing Race, the older Amazing Race Australia, very cool. US brought it in. I mean, like usual, US kind of made it weird and not as good. I shouldn't be mean. I do like the Amazing Race US. I just feel like when they try to bring in twists like that, it never seems to work as well as I feel like it could. But I still think it's a good show. But here I feel like, okay, we've been doing the passes for a few seasons. Now we've done the U-turn vote twice. We did that last season too. I don't know. I would say they should find something new. But then we have weird things like double one ways, which I don't even remember exactly what that was. And I'm like, do I want them going up with something new? Sure, why not? It's fun podcasting.
Yeah, I mean, start stretching your road metaphors as thin as you can get them, guys. I want to see what else you can come up with. Like, let's get weird with it. I'm here for it. I think that brings us to the end of the leg, Dan. So do you want to jump into some questions? Because we got a lot of questions. I was excited because I came to watching the episode a little bit later than I usually do. And we already had so many questions that I was like, okay, I know this is a good leg. As opposed to last week when we had like 3 questions because there really wasn't anything to talk about. There's plenty to talk about this week.
Why did Lacey and Celia lose?
No, because they came in last place. This is why David Bloomberg doesn't do a why X lost the Amazing Race, because it's always other teams were in front of them.
Yeah. So let me look at this and see. Because I have a few that I've prepped for, but I don't want to ask myself a question.
Well, why don't I ask you the question then?
Okay.
Because you did do the homework, and I want the people at home to understand how much effort you put into this, because I think it's fun. I think it's really cool. And I didn't think about it this hard, so I don't want that thinking to have been in vain. So yeah, we're going to go to Jeremiah on Blue Sky, who says, I can't recall the last time in either the US or Canadian versions that both sides of the detour were of considerable difficulty and of equal difficulty. So Dan, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Well, I mean, I would love to tell you, Jeremiah, that I remember every detour from every season, and I could be like, well, let me tell you at this one. And I did, but I think the question is interesting too, for a few reasons. One, I feel like it does kind of, the fact that this seems so difficult also points out that I feel like some of the detours this season haven't been, especially the U-turn episodes, but overall, there's been some that have just been kind of, okay. You know, some of the like most memorable tasks have often been, which has always been the case with Amazing Race Canada, often are just like the route info tasks, because you get everybody involved and they bring in some silly actor or whatever, you know, like the town crier one with the onions and all that. I mean, so some of that wasn't the hardest one, but sometimes those get harder. The roadblocks, sometimes they just put certain players through the ringer. But I did look back, so it made me think. I feel like the final leg before the finale is often where they throw something really hard at the teams. But then I thought, is that actually true, or am I just remembering? So I went back and I looked, and I apologize, I'm probably going on already too long on this, but I went back to the last 3 seasons and I was like, let me look back. One, because it's easy to forget, like, oh, what happened in season 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever. So they typically do like to have something difficult, often something to do with memory. And so I think less important, even, not to disregard your question, but I think the fact that both of these were memory tasks, Amazing Race Canada loves memory tasks. And I think they like to do that in the last leg. So looking back at last season, the one that really got everybody last season was there was a roadblock at the end, and they did a detour. It was fine. They did the funny thing where they got to wear the gumshoe hat and everything. But really what they did is they had something where a team member, they had to memorize names of months in Mi'kmaq language.
Yes.
And then the other person had to memorize the English descriptions, and they had to recite all 12 in order. That was hard. And that's a memory task. So then season 9, they had the funny memory task with the alien language, which was not the hardest thing, but still was a memory task. And that was kind of the big center point. The season 9 last penultimate leg was actually across 2 episodes, which I still don't entirely understand because it doesn't seem like they did that many things. That had a face-off. That's the interesting thing too, is both in seasons 8 and 9 they had face-offs, but they had a memory task where they had the aliens and people had to wear the helmets and do the
That
alien
was
script.
nuts.
Ridiculous. One more. Season 8 had kind of a ho-hum one, but near the end they had a face-off where they played snooker, but then they had the one where they had to do a physical task of going through this military training while, and then everybody read the values, and then they had, and they didn't even tell people what they really had to do. And you get to the end, they're like, okay, tell me the values. And then they had to go back and memorize it. So that was kind of a tricky one. So my point being, they do a lot of different things, but I think what they really try to do with these second to last legs is do something to do with memory and really ratchet up the stress and tension. And I mean, this was somewhat there, and you saw it with the teams, but you saw it. It didn't matter that Jesse and Jonathan are the front runners or Evie and Blake are so good. It kind of, those memory tasks that they always use just have different skills involved, like why Nippy did so well. And I like that in a last leg where you have something that anybody has a chance. And I think that's why they do it.
Yeah, I think it's really calibrated to, like, we're going to physically exhaust you and then make you stretch the limits of your mental capacity. And it's really effective. I think it's a great formula, and that pattern is really interesting to me. But yeah, I think, I don't know how well I can speak to like the balance of it, because it did feel like it did to me. I thought there was an obvious choice with this one, but I was apparently they were both very, very hard, but one seemed infinitely harder than the other one to me. Still, it was a level of difficulty that I think we haven't seen up to this point, and it is something that this show really likes to do.
Yeah. And I mean, for example, real quick, that one that I mentioned about the alien language, not the hardest one, but that was part of a long leg where before that they had to climb up this ascender, which I mentioned that was the one that Ty really struggled with. Then they had to do a tennis face off, which tennis can be tiring if you don't play it very much. And then they did the memory task. And then after that, they had to deliver food, which, whatever, delivering food.
They always deliver food.
I know. Why put that at the end? But I think also they wanted to mix it up. But I like the fact that they do a lot of different things every leg, but especially in the final leg. I think it's like the normal leg just taken to another level, I guess.
Yep.
Well, so what do you think about this? Because Brian Halpin brought up that Nippy and Magoo are a perfect example of glass half full / glass half empty. Lucky for them, Nippy's personality usually wins out. Now, I feel like that's a little tough on Magoo, Brian. But Jess, what do you think about that? Do you think that they have like this balance where they get stressed out but then survive? There's something in the middle there?
I think it's less that one of them is glass half full and one of them is glass half empty, and more that, and you see this a lot with effective Amazing Race teams, and I think it's something we've even talked about this season, where they heat up one of them heats up at the exact time that one of them cools down. And so they have this great sense of balance where one of them is always ready to keep going and ready to push them, and when the other one's energy is flagging or if they're getting discouraged, because you see that Nippy is typically the kind of sunnier person who's a little bit more optimistic, but she can also get really angry. Not angry, anxious. She can get anxious. She has a lot more fear that she needs to kind of push through, and he's more of a steadying force when it comes to that. And it's funny to me because I don't know that this is how they are in their real life, because you have to remember that Magoo's whole thing is that he is a hockey super fan who wears outlandish outfits and leads the cheers of an entire stadium. So this is a little bit at odds with, like, for example, he's somewhat frustrated at the air traffic control task and says to Joe and Grace, "Have fun in the final, guys." And it was so defeatist, and I'm like, you're not even halfway through the leg yet, my dude. You're gonna be okay. And that's kind of what Nippy says to him. But this is also right after she's had to contend with jumping out of a helicopter when she doesn't really like heights. So I think it's really more that they are such a good balance for each other. And I really love the dynamic that the two of them have had over the course of the season. And you can't help but want that to be how it ends, but I don't know. I feel like they've been so good, they've been so consistent, but they haven't been quite as good as the other good consistent teams.
Yeah, I also love the way though that like she'll get frustrated and then he's like, "You can do it," and then he gets frustrated like in this leg, and she's just like, "Just stop, just stop." And he's like, "Okay, okay, I'll stop."
Yep.
It's just funny that she just does not have it, but still, all that happens, and then you could tell. I mean, like they were just when they told them they had gotten the detour correct, like he couldn't believe it. He
Yeah.
almost froze. He was just like, "But all the other teams are still here." And they go. So it's just I love that. I love that in any season where you have these teams that don't they can say our goal this week is to win the leg, but I don't know if they totally believed it could happen because they probably had that goal in every episode or in every leg. So the fact that they finally did it was really cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. All right, so I want to give a shout out first, and then we'll go to a question because I hadn't seen the episode yet, but I was very excited for it when I saw Brandon Harder's comment on Facebook that said, it's Amazing Race Canada when they go to a Rotary Park. And I'm like, yes, this is what I'm here for. But Brandon also had a question, and I don't think we're going to answer the question exactly how he intended it, but it can open up the door to some other discussion. He says, how would you rank the episodes of the season so far? And Dan, I agree with your note here that I don't know if we necessarily want to do that, but I think we can give it a little highlight reel. We can tell you what our favorites are.
Yeah, so I I actually just spent a little bit of time not ranking them because again, I don't really want to be like, well, that was boring or that was boring. We don't need to call it. I mean, really, even the low episodes like last week are just because the team got out of it early and there's only so much they can do. But I especially wanted to call it what I think was my favorite leg, which was leg 7, which had Town Crier, Opera Man, and the donkey roadblock with the 2 actors. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
that was a fun leg. That was a good one.
Yeah, that was an all-timer, honestly. I don't know how that's not everybody's favorite, but I thought and the rest of it, I don't know if there's like full episodes that I could say even come close. There were some moments that I enjoyed, and some of them I enjoyed because they were legitimately entertaining, and some of them I enjoyed because they were silly and cheesy. Um, so I would say on the silly cheesy front, I enjoyed the searching for Papa Smurf. Was
Yes.
definitely a highlight for me. I enjoyed the person complaining about diarrhea at the plant treatment
I
task.
forgot about that one. That was great.
Yeah, I liked the actors with the ailments that had to be treated with herbal remedies. And I think like for in terms of legitimate entertainment and spectacle and wow factor, you have to give it to the Northwest Territories leg and the being able to visit the First Nations communities. I thought that was really powerful. There's a lot of really fun tasks that got them involved with speaking to the people that lived there. And they also got to go to the Arctic Ocean, which is very fun. Um, so yeah, I think we've had a lot of great standout moments, and I think we had one episode that was just a banger from start to finish in that leg 7.
Yeah, and I want to call out one more, which is Mr. PG.
Of
Mr. PG
course.
in episode 5, where also you had the moment with the big Mr. PG, the Mr. PG mascot, and the passport. I think it was the passport,
Yes.
or it was the YouTube board. They were all right there. That also had the water aerobics, and there was a speed bump, which was boring, but that had all the greenhouses. That one house, yeah, it had the double pass. Also the Ika, Dimitri, Grace, and Joe drama happened that episode. So I think that one is not as good as 7, but that was just a packed episode. That was like one where you do the podcast and you get to an hour and we're still talking about the actual legs. So I like
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah, that one was very fun. And I always like it when we have a ridiculous mascot. And it really a chance for John to chew on some scenery. It's always welcome.
All right. Well, I'm trying to see if there's anything else. We did have a question from Maddie Coulter, which I noticed that when Nippy and Magoo left the Detour, at first it just said 4th place, and I was confused. But Jess, this was set up for our favorite thing of the season, Jess. What was it?
The magic arrow.
Which someone else on Facebook did bring this up, Andrew. But I just want to bring up again another thing about this season. They didn't do it as much as the season went on, probably because there's fewer teams. But yeah, the magic arrow came back for Nippy and Magoo's jump from 4th to 1st. Pretty exciting.
Yeah, that was fun stuff. It was super fun stuff. So yeah, I think we can leave it here, but we probably want to. Dan, you want to check in with the prize tracker?
Oh, it was the original idea of the prize tracker was that Jesse and Jonathan, I thought the way they were going, we're going to end up with like $100,000 in 8 trips or something. So they only ended up with 4 and $50,000.
Only.
So $50,000 total. They got the $10,000 boost money. Everybody, when they get the boost money though, like people get from Expedia, they're like, oh yeah, that's great. And then they get boost. And everybody has the same reaction. They all go boost and get really excited.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
if I was Expedia, I would be so mad at this.
Like, yeah, everybody gets Expedia money, but the boost money, Nippy and Magoo again got it. Evie and Blake had the same reaction. Evie and Blake, $25,000, 2 trips. Yeah. We've got Grace and Joe, $20,000, no boost money for them. 2 trips. They get to go to Lima and Florence. I mean, I'm assuming again, this is the actual trips, not the you get points that you may be able to use for this trip, like Phil says. But Nippy and Magoo joined the board with $15,000 and a trip to Rio. All I can say is all these trips too, Jess, they all sound cool. There's not like, nothing against our fine United States too, but sometimes it might be like a trip to LA or New York or whatever. No, these are like a lot of these places I would like. I want to go to many of these places, if not all.
I've been to 3 and they were all amazing.
Yeah. So, pretty cool. But yes, that's the price tracker. I don't think obviously, depending on what happens next week, you can have the price tracker include the all new Chevy, blah, blah, blah.
Whatever Chevy vehicle it is, it's probably not the one that you have to pack the boxes in though.
No, not that one. That one, of course, did not come out so well because one of the teams could not do well with the empty box.
Well, that wasn't the truck's fault. Yeah, and I think we were very clear that it wasn't. You know who else should be mad about Boost being such a spotlight hog on this is Desjardins, because Desjardins is supposed to be the random bonus object that makes everybody super excited to receive it. And people this season were just like pulling it out of the clue. Oh, I've got the assist. Okay. And then people just like lose their entire minds when Boost gives them an extra $5,000 for winning the leg.
Man, if they don't reconsider the Desjardins assist next season, because I felt like this season it was even less essential than the past, and it just keeps being less essential. They need to find again, give everybody an assist at the start of the season. Have them there's so many tasks. Even pick the silly task. They could have this time. It would have been like, no, they would never do this because then Fuse would get mad. You could use it to skip the Fuse task or whatever, but have it where it doesn't do much. Its power is limited, but then people are constantly be like, should I use the assist? Should I use the Desjardins? They have to say Desjardins every time. Just like, should I use the Desjardins? Oh my gosh. Desjardins assist. And, it's brilliant, but instead people get it and it's like 2 minutes of the episode and you and I are just like, oh, we've mentioned it more than the show has.
It's true. Although, and I think we've mentioned the John Montgomery ads where he crashes some random person's kindergarten class. We've mentioned those more than we've mentioned the assist itself. Yeah, I like the idea of everybody having an assist. Although I think what people might be afraid of happening is you might end up with one task where like everybody blows their assist except one team, and then that team gets screwed. And then they're like, I hate Desjardins. They can just go to hell.
Yeah, I don't think they would ever do it this way because I just feel they don't really like the idea, I feel like, of giving everybody something. It's kind of more like even Express Pass, there's 3.
Yeah.
But those don't seem to last very long on this show, as we saw this season. So I don't know. I would love for them just to not have it at all. and then just have some task that's kind of I don't know how you theme a task to Desjardins really, but I'm sure they could find a way.
Yeah, they figured it out. I have another idea. I'm just spitballing here, Dan. Hear me out. We're talking about how we want them to be experimental. We want them to come up with new twists. What if we bake the sponsor into the twist, not the task? Bake them into the twist. Like, instead of a pass, we got the blown fuse. You got to stand at the fuse board. I guess the problem there is that you do get people like being deeply resentful of Fuse for ruining their day. But I think you could come up with something where it's not reflecting negatively on the brand, but adding a new twist. And it could be something that is a little bit punny and kind of a play on whatever is happening in the game.
I like it. Yeah. I also it made me think of something where it's like, okay, you've got to drink these 10 fuses before you can continue or something, but that wouldn't work. People wouldn't like that. Then you got people throwing up fuse iced tea, and that would be bad. Again, I always think of the challenge because I always think they would do something like that and say, here's the grossest thing you've ever drank, and then we're going to zoom in on everyone throwing up. And I'm always just like, why am I watching this show? What am I doing to myself?
But what are you doing with your life, Dan?
I actually haven't watched the season because I decided that I don't have MTV, but we're going off track. I'm just waiting for it later. But regardless, I like your idea, and I think they got to rethink some of these in some way, some of like the U-turn vote, that type of thing. And I know, there'd be people that would say, oh, they're branding everything. But I'd rather have that than just this assist that like you were in 7th and now you get to 6th. It's like, or even the team that got the assist and still finished last. It's like, oh, wow, that really helped. It didn't do anything.
Yeah, and I don't love the randomness of it. I want there to be some skill involved at least.
Yeah, earn the assist. Like, like they kind of do with the express pass. But again, I guess instead of giving everyone an assist, there'd be something like, okay, you can earn an assist. Now, granted, people would say, well, this is just kind of a weak express pass then. But I don't know. There's got to be something. Or maybe it's like, okay, we're going to do that in this leg. The top 3 teams that finish this leg, which happens to be a non-elimination leg, all get an assist they can use or something. I don't know. Just do something to add an extra. And then everybody keeps talking about, got to get the assist. Got to get the assist. We got to do well. I'm trying to help them here.
Yeah. Or what if you have to decide, like, let's combine it with the blind U-turn. Instead of voting on who's going to get the U-turn, vote on who's getting the assist.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. So it's almost like early in the season, you see Nippy and Magoo lose their bags, but they seem like really nice people. And you're like, I'd like to give them the assist. Also, because they lost their bags, they don't seem as threatening. We're talking like leg 2. We're not talking now. And so you're like, well, I want to help them. Or maybe like that team helped me. I really like the Rebeccas. They're pretty nice. They helped us or whatever. You do that. That's interesting. And it's a good, I like that because you still get the sponsor in. You'd be like, Desjardins, I mean, I wouldn't say is here to help because that's BMO's thing, but Desjardins is here to assist you. I like it. And, and we're going to offer an assist to 2 teams, but everybody votes on who gets it. And I actually like that because it's like a positive thing. It's not a negative thing. Like, how dare you vote for me? It's like, oh, you voted for me. Thank you. Of course, then it could be, why didn't you vote for me? That's always the other side.
Or you make a deal. You make a deal like on the next leg, you got to give me the assist if we give it to you this week.
Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot there. This is free. We're just giving this away. You guys got time to plan this.
Yeah, I mean, I will accept donations of Robux and Coffee Crisp if Canada wants to do that for me. I'm here for it, but we're doing it for the love of the game.
It's not required. Sure, if you want to send me those ketchup chips, that's great, but not required. I would say moose farts, but
please do not send us any moose farts, literal or figurative.
In the mail. I don't know. They looked really good. It's just, can you call them something else?
Please call them something that doesn't.
They're probably like the greatest food. We're going to get like a message like, Dan, that's the greatest dessert I've ever had. And I'll be like, yeah, but the name. No,
Yeah,
but
it's
it
so
was worth it
fart.
for John, though. Worth it
Yes.
for the episode,
Yes,
for the
worth it
content.
for sure. Top 5 John Montgomery moment. Easily. It's up there with Nutty. Okay, I think this brings us on that lovely note. It brings us to the end of our program this week. It is in fact season 11, and it is in fact the penultimate episode of the season. And next week, Dan and I will be back to bring us home and find out who's going to take it all home. And I'm very, very excited for this. I think it really is anybody's game at this point, and I'll be happy to see how it all shakes out. So we love to hear from all of you out there in Amazing Race social media land. Please keep your questions coming. You can hit us up on Blue Sky. I am at Jess Liese and Blue Sky, and Dan is at the Dan Heaton. So we love to hear from you during the week. You can also join our Facebook group called Amazing Race on RHAP. And when you apply to join the Facebook group, don't forget to answer the questions, because if you don't answer the questions, I'm just going to reject you. And it hurts me to have to reject people. I really don't like doing it, so don't make me do it. Thank you, Dan. As always, this has been enlightening and fun. Is there anything else you want to direct people toward this week?
You guys should just Amazing Race Australia just started this week. It's having 2 episodes a week. Thank you for not doing 3. That is awesome. Just 2 per week. And also, if you want to see celebrities where they freak out because they make them stay in like a dorm and sleep in the same room together, which, you know, some people liked, some not so much. This is the Amazing Race Australia Celebrity Edition content we're going for here. I found that very funny. Just started this week, so you won't be behind if you join soon. Similar, you know, it's not that hard to find. It's out there.
Yeah, it is. If you're a patron of Robin's podcast, you have a patron spreadsheet already. But yeah, you'll find it, and it's a joy. Amazing Race Australia generally is. Bo Ryan's maybe the only human being more ridiculous than John Montgomery as an Amazing Race host, so that's always fun. He's like John on steroids. So I very much enjoy that. And hopefully Dan and I will be around talking about that on some other podcasts. We're not going to be covering it ourselves, but we're excited to be guesting on other people's shows. And then Amazing Race US is almost upon us. And Mike Bloom and I are going to be back. We're getting the band back together. If you haven't heard, we might be having a couple of familiar faces rejoining us on the regular Amazing Race wrap up every week. So you'll want to tune in for that. We have some preseason coverage coming your way. We have recently, Mike and I sat down with Taylor Hale of Big Brother to talk about her experience as an Amazing Race fan, and to get all you Big Brother fans hyped for Amazing Race. So that was a very fun conversation we had, and she's a delight. I'm going to be excited to see her running the race. And then we recorded before the race even filmed. Once we got the cast in hand on the first day that they set out to film the upcoming season of US Amazing Race, Mike and I sat down with TARCan Armstrong and we did a draft, and we talked about all the teams from Big Brother that are coming on to this season of US Amazing Race, and we talked about how we think they'll do and made our predictions and made some winner picks so that we could then, in case we got spoiled, it wouldn't be a big deal. We'd have already made our picks. So that will be dropping at some point, and it is very fun listen, and hope you'll check all of that stuff out. And my mind is still blown. It's like, what a great life I live now, where if I need to know something about Big Brother, I get to go on a podcast and ask TARCan Armstrong about it, who's like the world's foremost expert on Big Brother. It's wild to me. So it was a very fun podcast. I think it was several months ago at this point, but it'll be dropping in your feeds very soon as we get excited for all that. But we still have one more episode of Canada to go, and we will see you next week as we talk about all of that. So thanks everybody for listening. Bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.